All right, everybody. Good evening. It's Andrew Griffiths here. And I'm going to be giving you guys a severe weather update. So currently today, we have had a few wind reports and a couple hail reports over the southeastern United States. With the day one outlook issued at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we can see that there's a slight risk in Mississippi still in place, and then also in Alabama into Georgia and the Florida Panhandle. Mainly watching out for is the potential for a tornado or two, some damaging wind, and probably not much hail. Um, Convection will probably still be there throughout the morning, and we are expecting a chance for severe weather overnight. And let's look at that using the newest HRRR run. So you can see here we have a lot of messy convection right now over the southeast United States. HRRR thinks it's going to it's going to dissipate a little bit, and we're going to get a little bit more fluid of a line of storms here, probably with a tornado chance mainly in here. Up here could be some hail. I'm surprised they dropped the 5 hail, but we could probably see a hail risk in this general region, taking a sounding here in Georgia. And we can see that if the storms aren't surface-based, this is a classic sounding for elevated hail. Pretty long and straight hodograph in the upper levels. Um, a little bit of MU Cape, so we could see some isolated large hail tonight. And then into the Florida Panhandle, there will be tornado potential overnight. Just one main thing is that storms will need to punch through this stable layer through the first kilometer of the atmosphere to really tap into the full convective available potential energy, which is around 500 joules per or 400 joules per kilogram of surface-based Cape. There is some low-level energy as well, with 69.3 Cape being there, but the main real helper in this instance is the hodograph. We can see that it's backed in the low levels, and we also have a very strong amount of wind shear, which will help, and there's a lot of cloud layer shear, which should help fend off precip from the updrafts unless they're storm mergers. As we go overnight, we can see that a more consolidated line of storms forms with damaging winds and tornado potential across the Florida Panhandle. It looks like instability will increase overnight as you get further to the east. And then it seems like a similar situation will happen tomorrow afternoon in the Georgia region. There will be potential for tornadoes. You have a little bit of surface backing and a bit of change in direction with the winds. You can see 1 kilometer there. It's out of the southwest, and then at 6 kilometers, it's out of the northwest, more or less. So you have that. There is a small 700 millibar warm nose, which could kind of inhibit storms from really getting going. We'll have to see if that does a factor. Autographs look relatively favorable for tornadoes as well. There could be an isolated strong tornado with this event as well. We will have to see before things get too messy. Um, yeah, we'll have to see. Here's the 0Z HRRR. It should be a similar picture to the last model run. It is. So 16Z is looking like when the event's probably going to start, maybe a little bit before that. And with the local time zone that would be in, 15Z would be um, around 11 a.m. Yeah, 15Z would be 11 a.m. EDT. So this event will probably start around 11 a.m. local time and last through the early afternoon. The sounding that I just pulled, I don't know why I clicked out of it, but it's got a relatively favorable wind profile. The lowest winds in the lowest level are backed in the surface. You also have change in direction with the 1 to 6 kilometer winds. You have a relatively favorable thermodynamic profile with mixed layer cape of 1,000 joules per kilogram. Only problem is your lapse rates aren't the greatest, only 5.9 in the low levels, so storms will need some mergers and also some time to really get going, although this photograph should help them out. We'll have to really see. I know what happens. One of the other problems is that the warm sector will probably be kind of limited. It looks like the warm sector is going to be something like this. Here's a look at South Carolina. I'm not really sure the severe risk is that high there. Doesn't really look like it. You have straight line photographs, so probably a wind and hail threat there in South Carolina. Let's see if North Carolina has anything that looks threatening. Sounding wise in North Carolina, same deal. Wind and hail threat likely. You don't have much directional wind shear, so a tornado risk is not likely, but can't be ruled out. I would say right now, my thoughts are probably through the 12Z period tomorrow, I would probably do a 2% tornado risk, something like this. And probably like over here. And then I would go 5% tornado risk as well. Kind of out in this general region here. And then I do generally think that there is potential for stronger tornadoes, probably in this general region in here is where your greatest risk for tornadoes will be tomorrow. We'll kind of have to see how stuff evolves, but that's what it's looking like in my opinion. Toward 18Z, we can see a similar environment. It's probably going to be there in eastern Georgia with large low-level hodographs, a good amount of 3 Cape, and it looks like your low-level lapse rates also improve based off what the HRRR is showing as well. And then overnight, there will be a severe weather risk in Florida. Looking at forecast soundings, wind, hail, perhaps a tornado if the surface winds can be a little bit more backed. And then we're not HRRR casters out here, so we're going to look at the ARW and see what it shows as well. It's got a pretty intense updraft there in southern Alabama overnight in a couple of hours. That would definitely be favorable for tornadoes there. Looks like it kind of washes out the warm sector and creates a long track supercell in the morning hours along the Alabama and Georgia border. This would definitely be a favorable environment for tornadoes, perhaps a stronger one if you can get that instability up. Let's analyze the sounding right here. Yep. So you can see the hodograph is pretty curved, I would say, especially toward the low levels, as you can see on the sounding here. A good amount of instability, a 800 ml Cape, and it doesn't even reach the top of the profile there. And then you also have 90 joules per kilogram or so of 3 Cape, which that should help. Looks like the severe threat though in the ARW is a lot more limited toward the south. We'll have to see how that evolves. NSSL, let's see what it has. It has a similar story, except it really doesn't get storms developing. Let's kind of see why storms really don't develop. Take a sounding out here. So on the NSSL, storms really never develop because of the surface inversion right here, which causes storms to attempt to form, but they really never do form. Let's see if it really... Yeah, looks like it does break, but you really don't have much low-level curvature at this point based off the NSSL. So that pretty much scratches out the threat for a bigger severe event there. The FV3, although the UH tracks are probably going to be a little bit overzealous, the FV3 actually doesn't look too different from the HRRR, which is a little surprising. Look at that South Carolina coastal cell. Maybe a tornado there. Let's look early morning in southern Georgia. Probably not much with that. Let's go look towards 17Z, which would be 1 p.m. or so local time. Yeah, so the FV3 does tend to not have enough moisture. Those will probably be in the low 70s dew point wise. So you'll probably have a little bit more instability than what it shows. That's not a terrible profile, but it's not the greatest profile either. Let's look at the RFS. It's getting out into the range of the event now as well. It shows overnight that this convection will kind of move through. And it looks like it kind of clears out the open warm sector. And it allows for steep lapse rates to build and maybe a more major severe weather event over Georgia. Take a box sounding and see what we got. It looks okay. Doesn't look that great actually. See what's going on. Looks like your 850 millibar winds are really displaced, which would cause that event to not be so great. We can look at the wrap and see what it's outputting for this. Looks like the low level jet's going to be a little bit displaced based off what the wrap is showing, which makes sense. Wrap still has a somewhat favorable environment over portions of South Carolina and into North Carolina though. So it's going to be a day to watch tomorrow over the southeast United States, which I forgot to show the SPC outlook. It's a slight risk from North Carolina into the Florida area with a large 5% tornado risk, 15 wind, and a 5 hail. After that, we're really not expecting any severe weather. That will do it though with this upload. Thanks for watching if you did watch, and have a good night.